So this is a axillary cutting edge. This is a principal cutting edge. So this is axillary cutting edge and principal cutting edge. The angle between the edge of the workpiece and this is the edge of the tool, which is called principal cutting edge angle. This is axillary cutting edge angle. This axillary cutting edge angle. So here in this view, we can able to know about this is a rack face of the tool. This is a flank face of the tool. Here, if you are having the principal cutting edge angle, here we are having the axillary cutting edge angle. So here you are having the principal cutting edge angle. Here you are having the axillary cutting edge angle. Here in this figure, you can able to see the main important geometry that is called rack angle and shear angle. The rack angle, the line which is actually perpendicular to the line of action of the cutting tool direction. This is the cutting tool direction, is a velocity which is in the line of action. The line which is drawn, which is exactly perpendicular to the line of action of the workpieces. This is a rack face. So the in between the angle, which is called a rack angle. Okay, I think some disturbances, no problem. So the angle between the rack face of the tool and the line which is drawn exactly perpendicular to the line of direction of workpieces is called rack angle. The shear angle, which will be the line of action of shear. This is a line. This is a shear plane. This is a line of action of direction of cutting tool. In between the angle is called shear angle. So this is a two important geometry. And another thing we are going to see about where we are using positive rack angle, where we are using zero rack angle, negative rack angle. In the positive rack angle, this is a cutting tool. This is a workpiece which is rotating at the clockwise direction. This is the area where actual the machining operation is going to take place. This is a cutting velocity. So this is what the axis of the workpiece. This is the rack face of the tool. This is the rack face of the tool. So in between angle is called rack angle, positive rack angle. The positive rack angle which is used for ductile material. Ductile material in sense we are calling copper, aluminum, and steel material. This is a clearance. This is all about the clearance angle. And the next one where we are using, so where we are using zero rack angle. Zero rack angle is used for machining brittle material because we need to give more force onto the material to machine the material. So in zero rack angle, particularly for cast iron material, we are using zero rack angle for machining the component. So it is a rack face of the tool. The rack face of the tool which is exactly lying on the axis of the workpiece. So this is what. So there is no angle in between. So these are zero rack angle. If you consider the negative rack angle, this is the rack face of the tool, which is away from the axis of the workpiece. So this is a negative rack angle. So the negative rack angle is used to fire high hard material. For example, nowadays they go for some kind of high temperature application material like nickel material, cobalt based material, and austenitic stainless steel material. If you want to machine these hard material, we need to give some kind of forces. We need to give more force onto the material. So we should have negative rack angle for this kind of machining operation. So next slide. Okay. I think you can able to see the tool geometry. This is a three-dimensional view of the tool. So from here, this is a end view, side view, and the top view of the tool is shown. From this three-dimensional single-point cutting tool, we can able to see all the side cutting edge angle, side rack angle, and we can able to see the back rack angle, and also see the side relief angle. So end cutting edge angle, everything we can able to see using tool geometry in the three-dimensional view of the tool. Okay, next. Okay, this is orthogonal rack system. In the orthogonal rack system, this is don't think it is somewhat complex. This is very very simple. This system is explained by Dr. IIT Kharagpur Professor A.P. Sattabodhi. He explained very clearly and fantastically. This is actually the rack face of the tool. Rack face of the tool is here. The workpiece, the edge of the workpiece, which is coming here, we are going to fit into the tool which is fit into the workpiece, and this is a flow of the chip. This is in this direction. So this is the principal cutting edge angle, the angle between the two line, the line which is drawn, the line which is x y naught line, and uh, uh, this line as well as the axillary cutting edge line. This is a axillary axillary cutting edge angle. So if you see, there is a three planes are lying on the tool. One is the plane which is a reference plane, and another one plane which is here, the cutting plane which is exactly at the cutting edge, cutting direction, and another one plane which is lying exactly perpendicular to the two plane. So z naught x naught, the axis plane which is lying exactly perpendicular to the two plane, this is called orthogonal plane. If you consider this one, you can have some sectional view. From the sectional view, we are going to find out the rack angle, and also gamma naught, this is a rack angle, and alpha naught, this is another one clearance angle, and also we are going to see about, we have already seen about the principal cutting edge angle and axillary cutting edge angle, and also here the inclination angle. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the five angles we are going to see. This is a tool which we are having. So the work material which is coming here, and it will go, the flow of chip will be in this direction. We are going to cut using this section. BB is the section. Using the engineering graphics, you would have studied that the BB, the plane which is used to have a sectional plane. If you cut and see the sectional view of section BB, the sectional view will be like this. You can able to view the x naught and z naught. In between angle is gamma naught and alpha naught. There, this is a rack face of the tool. This is a flank face of the tool. This angle is alpha, gamma naught and alpha naught. That the two angles we can able to easily find out. You can see from here. This is a table. This is our piece. From here, you are going to see. We can have x naught and z naught. You can able to see, and y naught you are not able to see. This is a point. So you can, from the sectional plane BB, you can find out the two angles. And another one, the sectional plane AA, the y naught axis. If you cut the using the sectional plane and see this sectional view, section AA, you can view the z naught and y naught axis. The z naught and y naught axis from view you are going to see. So x naught will not able to see z naught and y naught. So this edge is the rack face. So this is a y naught, this line, this is here. So you can able to have inclination angle. So these lambda, this inclination angle, this is also inclination rack angle. This pi is a principal cutting edge angle. This one pi 1 is the axillary cutting edge angle, and we can able to know about the rack angle, and this is a clearance angle. So by using this orthogonal rack system, we can able to have all these angle, and we can have the tool designation. In the tool designation, the lambda, gamma naught, alpha prime, and pi 1, pi r. So nose radius, principal cutting edge, axillary orthogonal clearance angle, orthogonal clearance, orthogonal rack angle, inclination angle. So this is called, we are calling it as tool designation by orthogonal rack system. So next, the mechanism of chip formation. The mechanism of chip formation is very very important topic in terms of know about the machining operations. For example, the tool which is here, we are having the workpiece which is coming toward this direction. This velocity is a work velocity, workpiece velocity. This is a tool velocity which is going in this direction. This area is completely have the this area is completely have the shear plane area, the shear area. The what is mean by shear area? This is a ductile machining operation. The ductile machining operation means the shear area which creates some kind of shearing operation. So if you are putting force onto the work material, the force which exceeds the shear strength of the material, what happen? There will be a slipping occurs in this direction. slipping, or we are calling it as plastic deformation of the material. So due to the plastic deformation of the material, the complete chip will be coming out. So in the form of continuous chip. So ductile material, we are getting the continuous chip by way of the shearing action in this direction. And we are this A1 is the chip uncut chip thickness. The A2 is the chip thickness. I will tell you one thing: the chip thickness will be always higher than the uncut chip thickness in this region. Why always the chip thickness? Why it is higher? Because the workpiece, there is a high temperature which is generated between the tool and workpieces due to the coefficient of friction. There is a friction between the two material, so the material will be getting softened in that area. Due to the softening and get hardening, but heating and cooling, that is going to take place. So due to that, the material which is getting thickened, so always the A2 value will be higher than A1 value. This value we are calling it as psi. That value is chip reduction coefficient, A2 by A1. So chip thickness ratio, the two value you know very well. So the two value can be find out by using these terms. And another one, lamellar chip formation by shear. This is the cardboard method. This is explained by the scientist Bisbenen model for card analogy to explain chip formation in machining ductile material. Nowadays we are telling about additive manufacturing, the layer by layer. The machining also same like layer by layer formation takes place when we are going for machining operation. So next chapter. So next, we are going to see about the three different types of cutting chips: continuous chips, discontinuous chips, and segmented chips. What is mean by continuous chips? In what kind of properties which affects the continuous, discontinuous, or serrated, build-up edge formation chips? How it is we can classify? So based on the work material, cutting tool, and also what is the process parameter we are going to use in this thing? What are the application of cutting fluid? Everything which determines uh, the forms and colors of the chips. 1 minute, sir. Wait for time. I will check. Okay. So this is called a brittle material. Chip formation machining brittle material. Ductile fracture, this is a brittle fracture. In ductile material, before we go for plastic deformation of the material. Here the brittle material, brittle fracture. Here, due to the force acting at the edge, there will be a formation of the crack initiation. The crack initiation will be getting propagated in the weak path area. So the crack initiation and propagation, this is called a brittle fracture, which is happening in brittle material when we go for machining the component. So these are all the some of the steps which are here in the uh, chip chip formation in brittle material. Okay, next. So another one important thing. So these are all very important geometrical characteristics of continuous chip. So 1 minute. So minute is coming. Okay, we try to get them into the. Somebody is coming. Sorry for interruption. Still they are coming, so we can able to. Okay. Okay. So this is a geometrical characteristics of continuous chip. In the continuous chip formation, this is what the tool which is here. I think you will follow my cursor. This is what the tool. This is a chip which is coming out and flowing towards this direction. The tool which is having two successive points. The tool which is moving from this point to this point. The tool is moving from this point to this point. This is called the feed rate. S naught feed rate. This is called the feed rate. So for one revolution of the workpiece, how much amount of uh, distance, the meter, the tool will move towards the chuck. That is what the feed rate. And this is a T, the T which is mentioned by the depth of cut which we are going to give. This is a T. This is a B1, the width of the cut which is mentioned. This thickness will be the A1. The A1 means we are called thickness of uncut layer. And if you cross sectional view of that particular plane which is here. So this is what the tool which is here. This is a clearance angle we can able to see. This is a rack angle from this line to this rack face, we can able to see this is a shear plane. So we can able to see the shear angle, the angle between the line which is drawn exactly the parallel to the cutting velocity and the line which is drawn in the shear plane. So this is a shear angle. So in this diagram, we can able to see all the important parameters like rack angle here, the line which is rack surface, the line which is drawn perpendicular. This is alpha naught, the clearance angle. This is A2 and this is A1 chip thickness, uncut chip thickness. This is a chip thickness. So if you want to know about the chip reduction coefficient, A2 by A1, chip thickness ratio is inverse to the chip reduction coefficient, A1 by A2. So next, so from this graph, I want to tell one thing. Our motive, what is our aim in machining process? We need to reduce the consumption of energy. We need to reduce the energy. We need to reduce the force acting at the tool onto the workpieces. We need to reduce the friction between the tool and chip. These are very, very important. Uh, if you reduce everything, what happens? We can able to have. Okay. So we need to reduce the friction. So the chip reduction coefficient, if you increase the rack angle, what happens? The chip reduction coefficient will be decreased. So this is a favorable machining condition. So we need to reduce the friction. We need to increase the rack angle for the continuous chip formation for ductile material. So that we have to reduce we can able to reduce the chip reduction coefficient. Chip reduction coefficient means that the thickness of the chip, the thickness of the chip after cutting, the thickness should be as much as lower. That is our aim for better machining process. That is what we are going to see in this graph. We can able to have some idea about chip reduction coefficient and friction and rake angle. So next, this is a geometrical characteristics of continuous chip formation. Here we can able to see the shear angle beta naught. This is a shear angle. This is a rack angle. This is A1, A2. You know very well. This is a cutting velocity. So what is the inferences from this equation? The inferences is with the increase in the chip reduction coefficient, the shear angle decreases. That is one thing. Shear angle increases both directly and indirectly with the increase in tool rack angle. So it's very clear that in ductile chip formation, in ductile machining operation, the rack angle should be higher. Higher means should not be over higher. If it is more higher, then it will be detrimental to the. It will create some problem on the machining process. It should be about 8 to 12 degree or 8 to 16 degree. So mostly we have to maintain this rack angle so that we can increase the friction angle, so that we can reduce the friction in between the area. That is very, very important. And also we can able, if we increase the rack angle, we can able to have some lesser force. By using lesser force, we can cut the work material so that the consumption of energy will be very, very minimum. This is what the inferences from this equation. This is the equation you know very well, and this is a normal equation r cos alpha divided by 1 minus r sin alpha, uh, that you have studied, and in the book itself it is here. So next, build-up edge formation. What is mean by build-up edge formation? This is a tool material. This is a workpiece where what happened in machining ductile material. For example, if you machining in the ductile material, you have to maintain maximum speed. Cutting speed should be very, very high. So no problem. If you reduce the cutting speed, what happened? The build-up edge will getting formed. So that is the problem. So build-up edge which is getting formed at the tool chip interface. How it is forming? Due to the force. So when you give a force onto the work material, there will be a formation of. So due to the chip formation, there is a build-up edge which is formed in that area. So the build-up edge which is creating problem in the tool workpiece material. What happens? The build-up edge which is formed at which is completely adhere onto the rack surface of the material. So if it is completely adhere, what happens? The wear will going to take place. At the same time, the rack angle which is getting minimized. The rack angle is getting minimized. We need to give more force onto the work material. And another one important thing, these build-up edge will not go into the chip if the build-up edge is detached from the cutting rack face. It is going with the chip. There is no problem. Otherwise, what happen? The build-up edge which is coming inside the flank face of the tool and flank face of the tool and which is lying on the surface of the machined surface of the work material. So the machined work surface material will be getting detrimental. So this is a major problem in the build-up edge formation. So this is what I'm explain the build-up edge formation, how it affects the surface quality of the material. The build-up edge which increases the cutting force, vibration, and also these are all the major problem in the build-up edge area. So in the cutting velocity, so how we can avoid the build-up edge? We need to increase the cutting velocity. That is what I told. So if you increase the cutting velocity, what happen? The build-up edge, the size of the build-up edge will be gradually reduces. So increase the cutting velocity is effect to reduce the build-up edge formation. If you increase the feed rate, for example, S01, S02, S02, if you increase the feed rate induce the build-up edge formation. So we need to optimize the cutting speed, feed rate, and rack angle to get better machining operation. So types of chips, cutting chips. We are having 3 different types of chip: continuous, discontinuous, build-up edge, continuous chip with the build-up edge. Where we are having continuous chip, ductile material with high rack angle with a high cutting speed. Continuous chips we are having the brittle material, we are having low rack angle, high depth of cut, low cutting speed. And the continuous chip, where the continuous chip will get occurred in the ductile material in case of low cutting speed. We are decreasing the rack angle using a blended tool. We give high depth of cut, and there is a higher affinity between the tool and work material, which is create a build-up edge formation on uh, the work material and surface finished work material. So these are all the types of cutting chips are there. So this is a tool material, a continuous chip, how the discontinuous chips will be getting formed. Continuous chip with the filled up edge formation. This is a serrated chips. This is a higher shear zone area. This is a lower shear strain area. The brittle material for which is discontinuous chip will be formed in the brittle material. So another thing. So the next topic is about cutting forces. This is very important thing in machining operation. The cutting forces. The cutting forces are very important thing because how the forces are acting. This is a tool material. We are going to fit into the workpiece material. The exactly the cutting force which is acting in this direction. In this is rotating in the anti-clockwise direction. In the anti-clockwise, the tool will be here. So it actually acting on the tool. The edge which is getting forces. So this PZ is a cutting force. This is a major component. We can measure the cutting force using dynamometer. Nowadays, the dynamometer is used to measure the cutting force. The PY is the thrust force, which is exactly perpendicular to the cutting force. The PX is the feed force, which is acting at the line of action of the axis of the shaft, parallel to the axis of the shaft. So in this diagram, we can able to see the PX and PY. This is a PXY. So the PX and PY in between, we are having resolving the forces by using PX and PY, and we are going to get a PXY, and we are having the PZ of cutting force which is acting in this direction. So this is what we are going to do in the cutting force on the single point cutting tool. Next is merchant circle diagram. This is very important diagram. Every time they are asking question in merchant circle diagram. It's important for machining operation. If you want to know about machining operation, the merchant circle, without merchant circle, you cannot able to escape. In the merchant circle, the cutting tool is here. We are having the alpha. Some notation may be different because I taken from Kalbeck Jain book. I refer Kalbeck Jain book. Here the notation will be alpha. In some other book, I told IIT Kharagpur, the professor book is all about gamma rack angle will be mentioned is gamma. So you don't bother about the notations. You bother of the concepts. That is what I'm telling. So this is a rack angle. The force which is acting in this direction, cutting velocity is a cutting force. The force which is exactly perpendicular to the cutting force is the normal to the cutting force. So the next one, the shear force, which is acting at the shear line. The in between the angle is the shear angle. The angle between the line of action of a working tool with the shear force, the shear angle, and the frictional force. Frictional force acting at the rack face of the tool. So the friction between the tool and chip, that is acting in the downward direction, putting it in the downward direction. The frictional force, normal to the frictional force we are having. So this is what we are. So the normal to the frictional force. So normal to the frictional force, we can able to see the friction angle. What is mean by friction angle? Friction angle beta, tan beta equal to F by N. So this is the right angle triangle. The angle between the force and F and N is a 90-degree. So if you want to know about the tan beta, you can have F by N. So we can able to find out the friction angle from here. Uh, some questions might be asked. Sir, how can we find out these forces? By way of we can without using the formulas. These are all the formulas we are having in the Kalbeck-Jain book. But without using formulas, we can able to find out the shear forces, frictional forces, normal to the frictional forces. The cutting force and normal to the cutting force can be find out by the dynamometer force, tool force, where we are fit the dynamometer and able to measure the cutting force, and the thrust or force which is acting perpendicular to the cutting force, that we can able to measure. After that, we can able to find out the we should know about the rack angle and the shear angle. How can we find out the shear angle? Shear angle can be calculated if you know the chip thickness ratio. The tan pi, the formula you know very well, using tan pi r cos alpha divided by 1 minus r sin alpha. Using this that equation, you can able to find out the shear angle. After that, you can draw the line. So when I discuss with the problem, I will explain how we can find out other forces. These are all the formulas. The for shear force, how can we find out the forces? These are all the derivation. It takes almost 1 hour to derive all these things. So from these angles, the forces, we can able to know about all the shear force, the perpendicular to the shear force, frictional force, and perpendicular to the frictional force. The power, what is mean by power? Power means Newton meter per second. That is called watt. Force into cutting velocity. So actually, the energy record for cutting, energy record for friction element. So that is what the energy record for shearing. So if you want to know the what is the energy record for cutting, you have to multiply the frictional, multiply the cutting force with the velocity. If you know about the what is the energy record for shearing, you have to multiply the Fs, the shear force, into the velocity Vs, the shear velocity. This is a shear velocity. If you know about the frictional velocity, energy, power for friction, we should know about the frictional force. We have to multiply with the cutting, the chip velocity. So we can able to have we are going to know about the energies record for cutting or machining action. So this is what merchant circle diagram. So this diagram, this both the diagrams are same. This diagram is from IIT Kharagpur. I explained both are same. Completely, there is no different. This is what the force is lying. The cutting force, normal to the cutting force, frictional force, normal to the frictional force. The shear force, which is lying Ts, is a normal to the shear force. Okay. Next. What is the use of merchant circle diagram? Merchant circle diagram used to know about the coefficient of friction and dynamic yield shear strength of the material. And also we need to know about the various forces, and with the forces and velocity, we can know about the energy record for machining operation. These three things we can able to know from the merchant circle diagram. So the problem which is here, so the problem I will, if time permits, I will come and explain the problem very clearly after finishing all the theory concepts. So these two problems I will explain. This is also cutting velocity. The three problems I will explain again. So next topic we go for sources of heat generation. What is mean by heat generation? heat is a major detrimental problem for uh, heat is a major detrimental problem for the machining operation. First, we are having the primary zone in the chair zone. This is the secondary zone. This is a tertiary zone. The primary zone in the chair area. The secondary zone is the frictional area, friction between the tool and chip. This is the zone. It's a ternary zone. Actual heat which is exerted, which is generated in the chair area, and also because the cheering happens, the cheering, that slipping occurs in the we are telling in the microstructural materials point of view, the slipping occurs in the area, and also cheer we are calling. This is the area, the friction coefficient of friction, the friction between the tool chip, the heat is generated. So the first zone is the part of the energy is converted into heat. The second zone, which is the tool chip interface. The third zone is the rubbing action between the flank face and the machined surface. This is what the three zones. So next, the cutting temperature. For example, the heat is generated in the shear zone and the chip interface area, as well as the area where the job and tool, the flank face area. The heat which is generated here, which is taken away by the chip. So most of the heat will be taken away by the chip. Some heat which is enter into the tool, some heat which is enter into the job. If the heat is enter into the tool, then the tool wear will be higher. So we need to take care of the tool. So that is what we are telling. The tool, we are applying cutting fluid to minimize the heat. So the tool which should be having high thermal conductivity, so that the heat which is getting inside will be taken away to the atmosphere. The tool have the capability to remove the heat to the atmosphere. So we should have high thermal conductivity tool material for removing the heat. That is very, very important. So the job, if the heat is enter into the job is getting highly, the temperature of the job will be getting increased. So there is also a major problem in the cutting action. So this thing is explained about the chip. The major portion of the percentage of heat will be in the chip. So the almost some portion of the heat in the tool, some portion of the tool in the blank. Blank means what material. This is what they are telling. If you increase the cutting velocity, what happen? The major portion of the heat will be taken away by the chip. That is what we are telling. When we go for machining the ductile material, we should increase the cutting speed. So we can reduce the temperature which is generated at the interface, as well as the chair area, chair zone. So what is the temperature distribution? The heat is actually generated here. The heat is dissipated to this area. So maximum temperature will be here, 150 degrees centigrade. So that is what happened. This area is getting wear. We are calling it as a flank wear. So the wear going to takes place in that area. So the tool should have hardness. That is called withstand high temperature. Tool should made up of hot hardness material. So they will go for carbide tool. So some other that will come later. So this is the temperature distribution. So steps to reduce the cutting temperature. What is the steps to reduce the cutting temperature? That is very, very important. You have to reduce the principal cutting edge angle and increase the nose radius. This is one idea. We can reduce the cutting temperature. Increase the rack angle will reduce the cutting temperature. And also we have to select the proper cutting fluid. These three things are very, very important to reduce the cutting temperature. Another one, cutting tool material hardness and effect of coating material. Wait for some time. Some students are yet to come, so we can allow them inside. So they will come and.
Magarajan sir.
Yes sir, yes sir.
Yes, sir. Time is 5:53.
Okay sir. Within 5 minutes I will complete, sir.
Okay, okay.
Within maximum 5 minutes I will complete.
Okay.
Yes. Is it okay, sir? Everything
Yes.
going fine? No
Sir,
problem.
okay, it's fine, fine, good.
Okay sir. Okay sir. Thank
Very
you, sir.
clear, sir. Very clear. Thank you.
Okay sir. I will continue, sir. For 5 minutes I will finish. No problems. Okay. Okay, cutting tool material. So nowadays this is very important. This is the research. They are asking for what is the recent techniques, recent trends in manufacturing. They are going for inventing more innovative materials in terms of cutting materials. They are going for some kind of coating techniques. The material which is the tool material is coated with some kind of hard ceramic particles, ceramic particles, so that they can increase the strength of the material, the surface strength of the material. So the carbon steel. So the carbon steel, you see, if you increase the temperature, what happens? The hardness is drastically reduces in the carbon steel. So they go for high speed steel. High speed steel, tungsten, chromium, vanadium. 18% tungsten, 4% chromium, 1% vanadium. The tungsten steel, high speed steel material. If you increase the temperature, what happens? The hardness is also reduces. If you go for cast alloy steel material, was a tool material, if you increase the temperature, the hardness value is slightly reducing. So it has some kind of hard strength. If it can able to withstand able to withstand high temperature. And next we go for the carbide material, carbide tool material. The carbide tool material, we are silicon carbide, boron carbide, tungsten carbide material we are using nowadays. We are using in CNC milling machine, CNC lathe. We are using carbide tool material, carbide insets for turning the machining operation for turning purpose. So if the temperature, if it is increases, what happens? The hardness value decreases lightly. The ceramics, we can able to withstand more heat. Even there will be increase in temperature, hardness value slightly reduces. This is the next one. The year passing, how the evolution of the material. So machining time, the carbon steel, 9,000 actually 1900. What happened? The 100 minutes carbon steel able to do the machining time. Machining time will be 100 minutes for carbon steel. Then the year passes, we can go for high speed steel, cobalt base alloy, cemented carbide, improved carbide grades, first coated, double coated grades, first triple coated material. Like that, the material is getting evolved, which is getting emerged. So machining time, you see. So machining time also very low. With a short duration of time, we can able to produce a component. Machining time is very less, and we can able to make the component. That is what nowadays we go for high innovative material in the tool. So this is multi-phase coating material. This is a carbide substrate. Over there, we are having the lot of layers. We are going to form aluminum oxide, titanium nitride, aluminum oxide, titanium carbide, titanium nitride, titanium nitride. So the series of layers, we are going to form these layers which are used to increase the strength, hardness, as well as hot hardness and surface strength of the material. If we can increase the surface topography, that is means increase the surface strength of the material. So the range of properties for various group of tool material. The one thing is very clear: the high speed steel have very high tough material. Yield strength is very high, but it's not hard. But they take diamond and cubic boron nitrate and aluminum oxide, a very low toughness but very hard material. So very hard, as well as it having high hot hardness. So we go for diamond and aluminum oxide material for machining high temperature application material. For example, super alloys, nickel based material, cobalt based material, ferrous cobalt based material, like austenitic stainless steel we are calling, and martensitic stainless steel. These steel material, high hard material, can be machined using the high hard diamond and cubic boron nitrate. Tool materials are used to machine the high temperature application material. So this is the main emerging technique, emerging material for doing all this purpose. So this is all the operating characteristics. From these characteristics, we can know about the high-speed steel and polycrystalline diamond. What is the difference? What is the emerging? We can know about high hardness and abrasive wear resistance. That is the main thing. High hot hardness for polycrystalline cubic boron nitrate. The ceramic high hardness at elevated temperature. Coated carbide also improved wear resistance, and uncoated carbide, which is having high hardness. The high-speed steel is having high toughness and also resistance to fracture. These are all the main important characteristics of the tool material. So its limitations and failure are here. So favorable properties of the tool material. The tool material should withstand high temperature. It should have high deformation resistance to prevent plastic deformation at the cutting edge, high stiffness to maintain accuracy, high fatigue resistance, high fracture toughness. And in terms of thermal property, it should have high thermal conductivity, should have high thermal shock resistance, it should have tribological properties, should have high wear resistance and lubricity. And this is the evolution of cutting tool materials. So so every year it passes. What happened? So from automobile field, it emerged in the year 1900 and 1910 and the World War One. During the World War One, the new material which is emerging for missiles and aircraft and bearings for fabricating these components. We need work material. The work material should be turned. So they go for uh, uh, new material, innovative materials for machining operation in the aircraft industries emerging in 1930 and World War II in 1940. That time the material we go for advanced aircraft technology. So they go for new innovative material. For that they go for carbide steel and high speed steel with high vanadium, molybdenum, cobalt based material which are using and petrochemical industry and polymer industries which are emerging in 1950. In 1960, jet engines, space programs are emerging. That time we go for the nozzle area, which is the combustion gases which are coming out at the nozzle should have to withstand high temperature gases. So the nozzle area should be machined with the harder coated carbides. And in 1970, 1980, we go for reduction of manufacturing process. In that time, we go for different cutting tool material, silicon, aluminum, oxygen, nitrogen material, high-speed steel material, cubic boron nitrate, and we go for defense alloys. In 1986, the defense alloys, super alloys is emerging. Super alloys are nowadays also they are using nickel-based material in boiler industries and thermal power plant, nuclear power plant for carrying high steam turbines, vanes which are manufactured using nickel-based material, and also the steam pipes which are manufactured using nickel-based, titanium-based material, which are used to these materials are able to machine using these kind of high diamond coated high performance ceramic material. And also 1919 2000 we go for diamond and CBN. So these are all the evolution of cutting tool material. So next we are having tool wear. The tool wear I am going to this area. The tool wear is a crater wear and flank wear. This is a flank face. The crater we are going to having is a flank wear which is at the flank face of the tool. This is a wear. Initially, it's a rabbit wear due to the cutting and uniform wear rate. After that, accelerating wear rate will be very much. So the cutting tool life, if you increase the cutting speed, tool life will be lower. That is what tool life all about. Cutting speed with tool life, and also the growth of the flank wear. Assessment of the tool life, the growth of the this is what very important. If you see the first uh, graph and the second graph, so there will be a major, there's a drastic increase in the flank wear. So at a high cutting velocity, so that is a problem. So the slope, which may dy by dx, the slope will be very higher in the curve. If you see this curve, the flank wear is rate is very low at low cutting velocity. So the slope is lower. So if you increase the cutting velocity, if you increase the cutting velocity, automatically the flank wear, the tool life will be very minimum. That is what the graph is telling. So next. So this is what all about cutting tool machining operation. These are all the references. Kalbeck Jain book I refer and APE Chattaboothia, IIT Karabul NPTEL study material. So I thank everyone. I thank everyone for listening this lecture. And if you have any queries, if you have any doubts, you can chat with our WhatsApp. You can have you can join our WhatsApp group, and we can able to supply the material, study material, and also it is a recorded version. Everything is recorded, So the recorded video also we will send to you for better learning. Thank you for 100% here. Thank you. I once again thank you. Lakshmanan sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor.
Yes sir.
Thank you, Maharajan.
Yes sir. Yes, 1 minute, sir. I will stop sharing and I'll come back. Sir, still some students are entering, sir. I think.
Okay, you give the enemy.
Okay, sir. Okay. 1 minute, sir. I will come back and so I will formally tell you that participants, this is all about metal theory and metal cutting. And next lecture will be delivered by Mr. Lakshman, our senior faculty advisor, Ramco Institute of Technology, Rajapalayam. So be patient because it is a theory-oriented subject. So if you have very eagerly, you should have some kind of acquire some technical skill by listening this kind of technical forum, technical speak. From us, we are not telling that we are giving 100% technical 100% technical skill to you, but you can have some idea about all these things. That's all. So I will hand over the session to Mr. Lakshmanan. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Please stop your sharing now.
1 minute.
Is it visible to all? Can you do this? My PPT?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
Sir, it is okay.
yeah.
You can carry on.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Good evening to one and all present. Welcome you all for
Good
the
evening,
wonderful session and webinar on secondary manufacturing process session 2 handled by myself, Mr. Lakshmanan. I thank our college, Ramco Institute of Technology, Department of Mechanical Engineering. I welcome all the participants for the second session. So my topic is tanning machines. So normally we know that tanning machines, what are the roles? I mentioned one two images in my slides. In the first stage, one person is there. He is nothing but he is a Henry Maudslay. I think everyone know that. He was a British machine tool innovators, tool and die makers, and inventor. I think he is a father of all the machine tool technology. His inventions were an important foundation for all the industrial revolutions. So the Maudslay inventions about 1,800 and up of the metal lathes for manufacture of standard screw thread sizes. It leads for mass production. So he is the father of all machine tools technology. And second image, so that is nothing but the exact drawing for horizontal boring machine by Jan Obregon in Woolwich Royal Bosch Foundry. It was drawn approximately in 1778. The drawing number is 47. You can see in Wikipedia, you can get easily. From 1778 onwards, that machine tool technology has happened and started the various revolution. And these are all the topics today we are going to see. Construction specifications and operations of center lathe, taper tanning methods, thread cutting methods, and special attachments of the lathe, machining time and power estimations, calculations, capstan and turret lathe for semi-automatic lathe, tool layout on the automatic lathe. These are all the topics today we are going to see. And next one is before going to see the center lathe specifications, all other things, we should know what is machining. The machining is the process in which the piece of raw material is cut into the desired final shape and size by the controlled material removal process. That is most important. The specifically the tanning is also one of the type of machining. The material removal process, which is used to create the rotational parts by cutting away the unwanted material from the workpiece. That's the most important. And you can see the center lathe in the diagram shows that all the important nomenclature of the lathes. So normally the lathe is the father of all other machines. Like in every home have the television, like every workshop have the lathe machines. That is the very father of all the machines. It is a basic machine tool. So lathe is a machine tool used to remove the unwanted material from the workpiece to get a desired shape. It's generally used for machining the cylindrical workpieces. That is one of the drawback. But olden days, that is one of the drawback. Now we are moving towards the they are using any type of the components we can machining by using the lathe machine. And the some parts and construction of the lathe. So the basic things, the most of the students and the faculty members, they can see physically in the laboratory session. So the bed, headstock, tailstock, carriage, feed mechanism, tool post, and chuck. So these are the some of the parts. So we'll see one by one what are the parts in the lathe machine. So the very first one is bed. So normally bed is the base where all the lathe parts are mounted. It's generally a single piece cast part made of cast iron. Why it's made for cast iron? The cast iron is used to because of its self-lubricating property. That is most important. Different types of lathe machines have different size of bed. The based on the requirement, the bed size will be varied. The lathe bed is having the high damping capacity for the vibrations generated by the machines during the time of machining. The guideways which are present on the top of the bed. So that is the role of bed in the lathe machine. And then headstock. Normally the headstock is the heart of the lathe machine. It is placed on the left side of the lathe machine. It is housing for the drive pulleys and gears. The chuck is attached in this part. In that chuck, the holds the lathe spindle and gears. Chuck is fitted into the spindle. Spindle is having some hollow for the long pass, the continuous or for mass production. The chuck is having, spindle is having the hollow portion. And the next is tailstock. Tailstock is also sometimes called the Lowe's headstock or puppet headstock. It is mounted on the bed on the right side of the lathe bed. Tailstock is used for centering the job. When long job is placed on the chuck, it provides a good support to the tamp, the vibration. It's also main role in that lathe machine. And the other thing is carriage. That is another important portion of the lathe. The carriage holds the tool and provides the movement of the tool in both the cross and the longitudinal direction. That is the most important. The carriage will give the feed to the tool. The cross feeds for taper turning, longitudinal feed for the turning operations. So based on the operation, the carriage will move and cross and longitudinal direction. It consists of following parts like a saddle, cross lights, compound rest, tool post, apron. Some of the specification. The size of the lathe is generally specified as follows. So when you go for purchasing for the new lathe machine, these are all the specifications. We should mention that to get the exact lathe machine for the requirement, the length of the bed, type of the bed, swing over the bed, swing over the cross lights, width of the base bed, spindle bore dia, spindle speed, the motor HP and RPM, spindle nose diameter, and then feed floor space required, maximum distance between the dead and live centers. These are all the basic specification of the lathe machine. And the next one is very formal, the types of lathe. Based on the requirements, we'll use in various types of the lathe. Normally speed lathe, bench lathe, engine or central lathe, tool room lathe, semi-automatic lathe, special purpose, and copying lathe. So many types are there. We will see one by one. Very first one is speed lathe. What is that? It's very simple in design. It only has a headstock and tailstock and a very simple supported tool. Hello, is it audible to you?
Sir, you carry on, sir.
Okay. Some of the disturbance come. Okay, sorry. Yes, it only has a headstock and tailstock, a very simple supported tool post, or by hands only. So it can be operated in speed of around 1,200 to 3,600 RPM. It is used for light machine works like wood turning, metal spinning operation, metal polishing operations for high speed machining. This is a speed lathe. And the next one is bench lathe. It is small sized engine lathe mounted on the bench. That is a difference between the engine and bench lathe. Only the size is small. It's similar to the center lathe. Only difference is small in size and mounting. It's used for turning small and lightweight workpieces. So it's similar to the engine lathe. And then next one is engine lathe. Engine lathes are most common types of the lathe. It is commonly seen in every machine shop. So you can see everybody. It's designed for low power operation as well as high power operations. The automatic feed is also available in this machine. The length of the lathe machine up to 6 feet. The machine can operate wide range of speed ratio. Based on the ratio, we can operate in the machine. Why it is called engine lathe? Olden days they have used a lathe machine by the power of engine, that still it's called as engine lathe. And then tool room lathe, it's very versatile lathe machine. It can give a better accuracy and finishing. It has a wide range of speed, can be varied. It can give the different types of feed also. It can be a great device to manufacture die, because based on the die only we can get the better quality of the job. So the tool room lathe is highly sensitive. And then semi-automatic lathe. It's a great machine for quick operations. The various types of the tool post mounted on the single structures. So multiple tools are set up on the machine. The job can be completed very quickly with the help of the single setup. That is the most important. So for the normal machines, every time we have to change the job and tool. For the semi-automatic lathe like turret and capstan, we can fix more than 5 or 6 number of tools for the operations. The sequential machining process can be done by using the turret lathe without moving the workpieces. That is most important. Normally semi-automatic lathe, why it is called as the tool changings are automatic. Why it is called semi-automatic means the job loading and unloading, coolant on off, those operations still these machines are in manually. That's why it is called semi-automatic lathe. And then automatic lathe. It's a lathe whose actions are controlled automatically. All electronic control lathes are automatic. For example, CNC. The loading and controlling works, coolant on off are also done automatic. High speed heavy duty lathe, which is used for mass production. So it will be controlled by CAM, CAE. So controlled by the single computer. By we can control the multiple machines. That is purely automatic. Nowadays the industry are using this type of machines for mass production. So some speedy operation. And then special purpose lathe. These lathes are modification of engine lathe developed for the machining special type of workpieces like locomotive, wheels and camshafts. So job specific lathe. Based on the job, we have to fabricate a special purpose lathe. There is a job specific. Another thing, copying lathe. The tool of this lathe follow a template or masterpiece through the stylus. The stylus connected to the cutting tool through the hydraulic or mechanical power. It's a copying lathe. It's a very easiest way to get a multiple job with a similar dimension. And then headstock mechanisms. So already I told this is a hard portion of the lathe. Headstock having some of the mechanisms, some of the parts inside of that. And normally headstock, spindle, cone pulley, back gears, gearbox, live centers. These are the components inside of the headstock casing. The basic mechanisms inside of the headstock, back gear headstock, all gear headstock. It's a general mechanism it is using in the lathe. The very first one is back gear headstock. Normally the back gear is a simple mechanism. Probably it is conceived around 1817 by Richard Robert. The Robert only developed those concepts. The back gear is a gear mounted at the back of the headstock that allows a chuck to rotate slowly with a greatly increased turning power. That's for that only the back gear has developed. By engaging the back gears for reducing the RPM but increasing the torque. So the screw cutting also requires a low speed. For that run nearly 25 to 50 RPM, especially if the operator is a beginner. This kind of mechanism is very helpful. And then all gear headstock. It's a very easy to operate as there is no manual slip of the belt from one step to any other. Because any problem facing the time of machining in the lathe, the cone pulley mechanism. So at the time the belt is getting slipped during the time of machining, it is affecting the entire process. For the recovering of those problems, the all geared headstock has developed. So the all geared lathe have the 3 or more than 3 shafts mounted within the casing. The gears are equipped to obtain different speeds, which can be more than 18 spindle speeds, normal for the lathe. The middle shaft has got nearly 3 gears. Thus will rotate at similar speeds. It will control it. The spline shaft also have 3 gears. It can mat to slide with the help of lever. So what are the basic? And the next mechanism is feed mechanism. So generally the feed mechanism is the most important. It's purely connected with the carriage and headstock. Normally the feed is the movement of tool related to the work. The feed mechanism is used to transmit a power from the spindle to the carriage. It converts the rotary motion of the spindle into the linear motion of the carriage. That is the most important thing. So the feed mechanism, if the lathe is having some problems in the carriage, the time of machining, so you have to see the headstock also, because it is purely interconnected. These types of feeds can be given to the lathe tool. One of the types of feed connection like longitudinal feed, cross feed, angular feeds. Those are the types. The main mechanism inside of the feed is nearly three types: tumbler gear reversing mechanism, tumbler gear quick change gearbox mechanism, Abran mechanism is there. So we'll see one by one. Tumbler gear reversing mechanism. The diagram shows that the sequence contain arrangements of gears. It's a bracket, it's a tumbler gears, a spindle gears, stud gears, intermediate gears, and lead screw. The main objective is to have to if we change the tumbler gears engagement, automatically they can change the lead screw directions and spindle gear direction rotation. It can be described as arrangements of gear wheels, which is used to reverse the direction of the rotation of any machinery when increase the number of engaged gears wheels, which can be easily performed by the pulling elements. In some industries or manufacturing units where thread cutting or similar activities which requires automatic feeding, this mechanism is very easily used for that. So when we engage the tumbler gears, so automatically we can get the clockwise rotation of the lead screw gear. So when we engage with the B by the use of bracket, so automatically we can get the anti-clockwise direction of the lead screw gear. So another technique, tumbler gear quick change gearbox mechanism. It's a different speeds for driving the shaft are obtained by the tumbler gear and cone gear arrangements. The tumbler or the sliding gears are attached to the brackets. So you can see the difference. Previously, the arrangements and sequence of the gears are arranging like this. In this, we can see the arrangements of gear cones are arranging in a single shaft. That is the most important. These two shafts are connected by the tumbler gear. And then driving shaft has a cone gear made up of different size of the gears. By sliding the sliding gears to various position and engaging the tumbler gear, the different speeds can be obtained because of the tumbler gear only. And shifting the tumbler gear, we can get the different speeds. So very such a simple to easily change the speed. So tumbler gear quick change gearbox mechanism. The another mechanism is Abran mechanism. I already told this mechanism is purely in the carriage. It is purely interconnected with the headstock. It is used for transferring the rotary motion of the feed shaft and the lead screw into the feed motion of the carriage. Because the Abran is attached to the carriage, they hang over the front side of the lathe bed. See that this is a longitudinal wheel, this is a cross laid hand wheels, this is the front end of the lathe. It is also used to provide the power feed to the carriage during the thread cutting through the 2 half nuts technique. Power is transmitted from the spindle to the lead screw and feed rod through the spindle gear and the tumbler gear arrangement. So you see that when we engage this gear, automatically the one gear will transmit the power to the headstock. It's an Abran mechanism, most important, highly sensible mechanism. So normally the cross feeds and longitudinal feeds are rotating. The base of the bed is, you can see the rack and pinion mechanism. By the rack and pinion mechanism, the longitudinal movements are happening. And the next one is different types of work holding devices using in the lathe machine. Normally, the work holding devices are used to hold and rotate the workpieces along with the spindle. Different work holding devices are used according to the shape, length, diameter, and weight of the workpieces. The work holding devices are chuck, face plate, angle plate, mandrels, carriers, centers, steady, and follow rest. These are the common work holding devices. We will see one by one. The very first one is chucks. Normally, chuck is a short length and a larger diameter which cannot be mounted between the centers. That kind of job, by using chuck, can be easily hold. The chuck is classified into 4 categories: the 3-jaw universal chuck, 4-jaw independent type of chuck, magnetic chuck, collared chucks. These are all the types. The first is 3-jaw chuck. You can see the 3-jaw chuck is having 3 jaws. The chuck is the position of the jaw. 3 jaws fitted into the 3 slats to slide at the same time by the equal movement. That is rotating then any one of the 3 pinions to chuck key. By the applying chuck key to rotate it, all the 3 jaws are moving towards the job. This type of chuck is suitable for holding the rotating regular shaped workpieces like round or hexagonal rods about the axis of the lathe. That is most important. This type of chuck is very suitable to fix the job in a highly coincide the axis of the lathe spindle. The workpieces of irregular shapes cannot be held by the check because that is most important. Irregular jobs, you can't use this type of jobs. And then 4-jaw independent check. There are the 4 jaws in the check. Each jaw is moved independently by rotating a screw with the help of check key. That is a basic principle. A particular jaw may be moved according to the shape of the work. This type of check can hold the work of irregular shapes, but it requires more time to set the work aligned with the lathe axis. For eccentric turning operations, this type of check is highly useful. Then magnetic check. The holding power of the check is obtained by the magnetic flux from the electromagnet. The magnets are adjusted inside the chuck to hold and release the workpiece. Workpiece made of magnetic material, that is the necessary things to hold this type of chuck. Only are held in the chuck very small, thin, and lightweight components which cannot be held in the ordinary chuck. That kind of components we can use to this magnetic chuck material. Another thing, collet chuck. The collet chuck has a cylindrical bushing that see that this portion. Its slots cut lengthwise on its circumferences. So it's hold the work with more grip. The collet chucks are more used in capstan layers and automatic layers in the holding bar stock in production worker. So when the material passes through the gap between the collet chucks, the country is passing continuously on intermediate. So very good holding techniques in the collet chuck. And then face plate, you see the face plate. The face plate is used to hold the large, heavy, and irregular shaped workpieces, which cannot be conveniently held between the centers. That type of sorts we have to set by using the face plates. It is a circular disc bored out and threaded to fit out the nose of the lathe spindle. So this is a separate face plate. This face plate is fit into the headstock spindle. It's provided with the radial slats and the T slats for holding the work by bolts and clamps. By the bolt and clamps, you can easily hold the job. For irregular shaped bulk components, easily hold by using the face plates. And the another thing is angle plate. The angle plate is made by highly quality materials that has been stabilized to prevent the further movement or distortion during the time of machining. You see the job, it has two accurately machined faces at right angle to each other. So see that this is the angle plate that we can easily fix the one end of the job, another end is purely mutually perpendicular. This is the axis, this is another axis. When you rotate the spindle, automatically the job will be easily getting machined. So next one is mandrels. Previously drilled or bored workpieces is held on the mandrel for machining. There are center holes provided on both the faces of the mandrel. Live centers and dead centers fit into the center holes. That is, a carrier is attached at the left side of the mandrel. You know, see they are normally. So the centers are normally fit in the live and dead centers. The mandrel gets the drive either through the catch plate or driving plates. Catch plate and driving plates are easily hold the mandrels during the time of machining. So these are all the types of plain, tank mandrels, thread mandrels, and cone mandrels. So the hollow jobs easily hold by the plain mandrels. So there is no internal threads in the job. This type of mandrels are using internal threads jobs or non-internal thread jobs. So this type of GAN mandrels are using combination of more than one jobs we can mold automate more than simultaneously. The cone mandrels are using for hollow with the taper face of jobs. We can use this type of mandrels. Another thing is carriers. When the workpiece is held and machined between the centers, carriers are useful in transmitting the driving force to the spindle to the work by means of the driving plates and catch plates. For example, the work is held inside the eye, the carrier, the tightened by the screw. So this is the screw to tighten the job. You can see that this is a catch plate. Previously, I told this is the carrier. This is the saw. Hello, is it audible?
You carry on, sir. You carry on.
Okay. Centers, it is used to support the lengthy work to carry out the lathe operations. When the work is held in the chuck, the center is assembled to the tail span. So, and it is support the overhanging end of the work. The face is conical. That is most important. So, two types of centers are there. This is the live center, is the set center. For the live centers, the centers have to rotate along with the job. In the dead centers, it's not rotate along with the job. So based on the requirements, the neck and the end of the centers will be varied. The next one is steady and follow rest. The rest is a device which support the long workpieces. For example, length to diameter ratio is more than 10 or more than 12 when the machine between the centers are checked. It prevents the vibration and bending of the workpiece when the length and stiffness of the workpiece make it difficult to machine without deflecting of the parts. Because during the time of machining, the job, lengthy job will be deflected. For preventing those things, we have to use the steady and follow rest. This is especially for lang axles, shaft, similar parts used in automotive or heavy equipment applications or oil drilling components. For that, you have to use the steady or follow rest. Normally, the steady or follow rest, where we have to use steady rest, where we have to use follow rest. The steady rest is placed in the normal gateways of the bed. The follow rest is placed in the carriage. So it's moving along with the tool post. It's moving from to and from. That is the distance moving between the live and dead center of the lathe. It is not moving. It's a static one. It's a passing through that. The job will be passing through that. Then normally everyone know that some of the basic lathe operations, spacing, taper turning, contour turning, chamfering, form turning, cutting of threading, boring, drilling, and knurling. These are the basic operations. Normally, basically, you know that we are and the cutting tool to reduce the length of the job, taper turning and reduce the diameters gradually, and then chamfering operation we have to get the taper face at the end of the job, the cutoff to reduce in between portion and remove separated from the workpiece, threading to the helical portions to make it by threading, boring to enlarge the internal diameter, drilling is to make the holes, knurling to make the impression for gripping. These are all the basic lathe operations. And then out of these, the taper turning and thread cutting operations are highly impressive because those operations we have to attach separately to the lathe. Those operations are highly sensible for the lathe operations, especially taper turning. The taper turning operation uniform increase the degrees in diameter of the workpiece. Taper turning methods are there, like for that the farm tool method, compound rest method, tailstock set over method, taper turning attachment separately, a combined feed method. These are all the types. The very first one is farm tool method. Farm tool method, the
Hello, Lakshman sir.
and the taper length. The another technique is compound rest. Normally, the compound rest is commonly used to techniques in the lathe machine. It's having the circular base scaled in degrees, which may be swilled and clamped at any desired angles. Its angle of taper is calculated by using some of the formula. So see, tan alpha is equal to d1 minus d2 divided by 12. D1 is the maximum taper angle. D2 is the minimum taper angle. L is the tapering length. Alpha is the half of the taper angle. So this is the formula for find the based on the formula. What's the value what we are getting? Based on that, we have to turn the swivel base for it. In that swivel base, we have the certain angles. Normally, we have the both the ends from 0 to 45. So maximum swivel up to 45 degrees. And the another technique, tailstock set over method. The construction of the tailstock is designed to have the two parts, for namely the base and body. The base is fit into the bed guideways, and body having the dead center can be moved or to shift the lathe axis. This is the difference. This is the lathe. So bed is the static one. The body will move from X by S point C point to B point. The dead center is suitably shifted from its original position to calculated distance. That distance is called S. S is called set over. Okay, the work is held between the centers and longitudinal pieces given by the carriage to generate automatic tapers. So we see that there is no modification in the carriage portion. Just to tooling move towards left and right, automatically the taper will be getting. Because of this formula, based on the formula, we have to shift the set over distance. The S is equal to L into capital T minus small t divided by 12. So S is the amount of set over distance. Small is the smaller diameter, capital D is the maximum large diameter. Small L means length of the taper. The length, capital L is the total length of the job. And then taper turning attachment method. It consists of a bracket which is attached to the rear end of the lathe bed. So it supports the guide bar pivoted at the center. The bar having the graduation in degrees may be swiveled on the either side of the zero graduation, maybe on the left to right or right to left. The cross slides moving freely by removing the binder screws. So when you remove the binder screw, automatically the cross slides are moving freely. Main advantage of this method is long tapers can be machined. The power feed can be applied. The work is easily completed with a short duration. But internal threads cannot be, tapers cannot be machined. That is one of the drawback. And then last technique is combined feed method. So feed is given to the tool by the carriage and the cross slide at the same time to move the tool at a resultant direction to turn the taper. It's not a measurable one. So moving both the directions, automatically we can get the tapered face, but it's not an accurate method to get an exact taper angle. And the next important important operations, the lathe machine, the thread cutting. Normally the thread is a helical shaped grooves formed by a cylindrical surface of workpiece. That is a threading. The thread cutting is operation performed on lathe to produce the threads by using the tool whose shape will be same as that of the thread. That is called thread cutting. So thread cutting operations, the back work of thread cutting mechanism. You see the one by one. Normally the thread cutting formula for that driver teeth divided by driven teeth is equal to number of teeth on spindle gear divided by number of teeth on lead screw gear. That is a basic formula for getting the pitch. You know the pitch. So if you want to calculate for that, threading driver teeth divided by driven teeth is equal to number of teeth on spindle gear divided by number of teeth on lead screw gear. It's a common formula for getting the calculation of threading. And then types of gear trains arrangements in the thread cutting. So these arrangements already was in the previous slide. Like see, this is the arrangement. Simple gear train. The simple gear train is very simple. There is no speed variations because only one gear is there. It's an intermediate gear. Just to transmit the power from driver gear to driven gears. But compound gear trains, we can attach a multiple gears in a single shaft. We can vary the multiple speeds. Nowadays, the most of the all gear lathes are having the compound gear train attachments. It's for getting better convenience for various speed thread cutting speeds. And then lathe special attachments. So in the lathe attachments are additional attachments on the lathe like taper turning, milling attachments, grinding, copy turning, spherical turning attachments are possible to attach on the lathe gateways. Milling attachment, we can see that you have to remove the carriage from the lathe bed. The guideway, you have to set up external setup with the milling cutters. The milling cutters run by the separate power motors. The job is not rotating, just its static motion. The tool is rotating and you make the keyway cutting through the milling attachments. Grinding attachment similar to that, but is the tool orientation is entirely different, mutually perpendicular. In that case, that the milling cutters are moving towards right center to left center direction. In this case, that grinding wheel is moving towards perpendicular to the right center to left center direction. Then copy turning attachments, you can see that copy turning attachments are to machine the complex or contour on the work, which requires the feeding of the tool in two axes, both axes simultaneously, similar to the taper turning. That is the copy turning attachment. It's operated by mechanical, it's operated by hydraulic. Comparatively, you see that this is our output. For the based on the output, we have to prepare the separate template for that. That based on the template, the stylus will operate the job. The stylus pressure handled by the mechanical spring. It's operated by the hydraulic pressure. So it's a template. So comparatively, this is the best one because it will reduce the tool vibration, tool wears, job accuracy, surface finish. Because now they are using this type of other hydraulic based copy turning attachment they are using compared to mechanical. And then spherical turning attachments like previously. So this is a template. This template, based on the template, the stylus will touch the job. When we get the concave or contour shape, we can use this type of templates to get the maximum concave and convex angles. Because what is the angle we required, based on that we have to prepare a template. And then cutting speed, feed is the most important topic. The most of the examination in university and gate examination, we have to know that these are the basic things of the manufacturing technology too. That is secondary manufacturing process related basic formulas. Normally the cutting speed, feed, depth of cut, these are all the input parameter of machining. And material removal rate, surface finish, tool wears, those things are output parameter of machining. So these input parameters are controllable. Those output parameters are uncontrollable. So you have to see the basic cutting speed formula. So V is equal to pi dn divided by 1000. So V and D is the capital diameter of the job. N is the job spindle speed, and then feed. Normally the feed F is equal to L divided by capital N into machining time. So L is length of cut, N is the RPM, revolution per minute, T is the time. So machining for cutting per cutting time. That is a machining time calculation. So we have to replace that. Depth of cut, another input parameter. So depth of cut is perpendicular distance measured from the machine surface to the uncut surface of the workpiece. That is that D is equal to di minus df divided by 2. Inside diameter of the workpiece minus final diameter of the workpiece divided by 2. So we can get the depth of cut. So output parameter, material removal rate. Material removal rate is the volume of material removed per unit time. With respect to time, we can calculate the amount of material removed from the job. The volume of material removed per one revolution by di d into f. So when we go for multiple revolutions per that, so common formula that by di df into n. N is the number of turns. So number of cuts. For example, directly we can't cut that 5 mm or 4 mm or 6 mm depth of cut to feed the material to remove the unwanted portion. So slowly we have to give 0.1 mm, 0.3 mm, 0.4 mm or 1 mm. So that is the number of passes, denote it. So MRR replacement of this formula 1000 into E into D into M is another formula for getting based on the given data from the formula. So the related formulas are available in the book of Manufacturing, Engineering and Technology by Kalpak Jain, the Pearson edition, 7th edition. The example problem 23.1, page number 636. The similar kind of problems are available in that book. You can refer. And the estimation of power. The power is the most important thing. The previously they asked the power estimation calculate based the questions in Anna University. So that's why I mentioned it. Power calculation for tooling, machining operation, in especially in lathe. The cutting force into cutting speed. What is that cutting force? Cutting force K into D into F. D is nothing but depth of cut. F is the feed. So K is the constant depending upon the workpiece material. So for the cutting force KDF is the for the cutting speed E. So power formula is equal to KDF into E. It's an estimation of power. So these are all the given data. When you approach the problem during the time of examination, gate or university examination, you carefully mention the unit conversion. And then estimation of machining time calculations is another important area. So normally T is denoted time required for tanning, F feed per revolution, L is the length of job in terms of millimeter, N is the revolution of job per minute, 1000 gas divided by 5 into D. Is clearly I mentioned D. D means D average. Here S is the cutting velocity or cutting speed. D is the diameter of the job. So time taken to tan for a unit length 1 by feet per minute. For a L mm of length is L is divided by feet per minute. So normally the estimation of machining time calculation formula L divided by F into N. Feed into number of revolution of the job. So you have to put, it's not a simple D, D average. So for the machining time calculation, while considering the number of cuts, how many times we have to pass and remove the material from the job. So L divided by F into N is the common machining time calculation into number of cuts required for the job. So the N formula 1000 S into 5 into D average. Here correctly I mentioned. While considering the over travel and approach, sometimes they may ask the over travel time of over travel is nothing but the tool is not directly touched with the tool. That time still the carriage is moving towards the direction of the job. That time is called over travel. Approach time, approach length is called just to tool touch the job, but the machining will not be started. That time is called approach length. So the time for turning T is equal to, additionally we have to add over travel and approach length from this formula. So ALO divided by F1, number of cuts required. That's all. So this is the two important formulas. When we know those three formulas, automatically we can approach the machining time calculations and material removal rate, some of the input parameters of the machine. So one of practice problem I mentioned. So due to the time limits, I want to skip this. Later on, we will discuss on next sessions. Okay, the next is semi-automatic lathe. See that semi-automatic, why we go for semi-automatic lathe? So in the category of semi-automatic lathe, normally we know that capstan lathe and turret lathe. Only one tool can be used in the normal machines. So for the replacement, only we are moving towards the capstan lathe, the large setting time of the job, because every time we have to set separately. The ideal times involving the setting and movement of the tool. For this individual operation, we have to remove that. We have to set the separate tool for the machining. So that kind of problems will be overcome by capstan and turret lathe. That's a semi-automatic. So normally the capstan lathe is one of the type of semi-automatic. Yet machining operations are done automatically. Functions other than the machining like loading, unloading of the job, positioning of the tool, coolant operations are done manually. That's why it's called capstan. You see the major difference. There is no tailstock present in the lathe. There is a major difference between capstan lathe and turret lathe. The capstan stud is directly set on the sliding ram and then set on the saddle. There is a difference between the capstan and the turret. So there is a major portion of the capstan lathe. Normally the bed, headstock, turret head, these are all the important parts on the capstan lathe. But very specific is turret head and saddle. Turret head is mounted on the ram, fitted with the turret moves longitudinally to the saddles. That is the direction. You can see this. The turret has a hexagonal block having the 6 spaces for mounting the 6 or more than 6 tools at a time. That is important. The threaded hole on these spaces are used to hold the tools. The actuations of the ram is done by hand because it's manually operated. An adjustable stopper is used to control the forward movement of the ram because based on the Geneva or indexing mechanism to control the turret head, the bringing the next tool acting position of the mechanism called Geneva mechanism. In capstan lathe and turret head is mounted upon ram, which slides upon the saddle. That is important. That is a major difference. Then another semi-automatic lathe is turret lathe. You see the difference? There is no tailstock present here. The hexagonal turrets directly rest on the saddle. Also the power also different because normally the turret lathe is mounted directly on the saddle, but the capstan head is mounted on the ram. The ram slides on the saddle. The feeding to the tool, the entire saddle is moved. Now the turret lathe is positive. But the capstan lathe, the saddle is fixed at a convenient distance from the work only. It can't move towards to the tool post. And then the excellent rigidity in turret lathe is somewhat low rigidity in capstan. And the tool travel is almost full length of the bed turret, but the capstan limited to the tool length. In the turret lathe, we can operate up to the 200 mm of diameter of the job. In the capstan lathe, we can't go beyond the 60 mm diameter of the job. These are all the difference. You can see the diagram also. Yes, this is the difference. The top view and the side view of the lathe. See that this is a major portion. This is a difference. This attachment is here. This is a capstan lathe and turret lathe difference. It is the heart of the things we have to mention. Wherever you mention, you are writing difference between the turret and capstan. Those things you have to mention properly. And then internal mechanism present in the capstan and turret head. The turret is provided with automatic indexing mechanism. The Geneva mechanism is used in the turret lathe and automatic lathes. This mechanism that translates the continuous rotation into the intermittent rotary motion. So it's not rotate continuously, it's periodically it rotates. Once it rotates clockwise, automatically the ratchet will release and then next point will come up on it. The turret head on indexing plate, bevel gears and ratchets are mounted on the same vertical spindles. You can see the index plates, ratchets, ratchet spindles, pin, bevels, the roll of this. When you move towards the right direction, clockwise direction, based on that, the ratchet will move, rotate periodically. This bar feed mechanism. So normally the turret and capstan lathe, the bar is automatically fed without stopping the lathe, which reduces the production time. The bar stock passes through the struck and hollow spindles of the lathe. You see that this is a headstock. The bar stock passes through the spindles without stopping that.
This is handled by the bar feeding mechanism. The weight is hanging there, automatically the wheel will be passing towards that. It's a olden techniques, but it's very simple. Next one is automatic lathe. Okay, the next automatic is a highly productivity, the reduced unit cost, improvement in accuracy. That's why we move towards automatic lathes. So normally you see that the semi-automatic, multiple spindle and single spindles are there. For the automatic also single spindles, multiple spindles also there. For the single spindle, every operation will be done separately. For the multiple spindle, those operations will be done by single collection of tool. Yes, single spindle automatic. We see that single spindle automatic lathe is a modified form of turret lathe only. These machines have 6-station turret, like maximum of 4 crash slates for a single job machining at the same time. In a general, to use more than one tool in a turret station, the external threading is usually carried out by threading the cutting attachments. Those arrangements are inside of that. You see the chuck, coolant supply, cross slates, squares, cams and glass cam shaft. Those in that is controlled by the control panels. It's fully automatic. There is no need to use the manual for coolant on, off, tool changing, job changing, everything is automatic. So the type of single spindle automatics, various types are there. Through the single spindles, automatic also automatic cutting of machine is there. Switch type automatic screw cutting machine is there. So we will see one by one. The automatic cutting of machine is nothing but these machines are simple in design. They are used for producing a large quantity of spots of smaller diameter and shorter length. For that of category, we are using the automatic cutting of machine. The simple shape components are produced in these machines like this. So when you move the job from this to this, the stopper will stop the job. So automatically it's cutting up to move the job separately. There is no manual power needed. And switch type automatic screw machines or sliding head automatic lathe. So both are similar. That is most important. Sometimes they may ask sliding head automatic lathe. This type of automatic lathe is suitable for small, long, and slender parts such as parts of wristwatch. So this is fabricated by this. The headstock carrying the bar stock moves front and back of the feed movement on the longitudinal direction. You see that? It's called a sliding head automatic lathe. That's why it's called sliding head automatic. It's controlled by switch mechanism. It is used for producing the long, accurate parts of the small diameter of 2 to 25 mm. Around 2 to 25 mm, we can fabricate, we can machine. The parts can be machined with accuracy nearly 0.005 mm to 0.0125 mm. That's why it's very highly useful. The sliding automatic is, you can see this mechanism, you can see in the micro tip pencil. Everyone know that. So inside of the micro tip pencil, the needle will pass us through the head chuck, collet chuck. So this is passing through where this is the first position of the collet, this is the second position of the collet. Due to the collet, the material or passing through that automatically the machining will be done. This is an automatic feeding system, sliding head automatically. Then multi-spindle. This is also multi-spindling techniques can provide the various type of machining such as boring, turning, chamfering, threading, grooving, and drilling by moving the workpieces between the 6 to 8 stations in a single manner. Generally, multi-spindles automatic lathes provide approximately 4 to 5 times of machining speed comparing to the single spindle NC lathe. You can see that comparatively it's very easy process having multiple jobs with the multiple tools. It's a difference. So you see one by one, having the two types, parallel action and progressive action, multiple spindles automatic. You see that parallel action there, the arrangement of this is some operations of these. The same operations are performed on all the spindle of the machine. This machine consists of the frame with the headstock. The axis of work spindles are horizontal. These spindles are arranged in a line, one above the other. So you see that there are two crash slates, one of the left hand side, other of the right hand side. This is a major thing. So all the tools are doing same process for the same job. It's a mass production process. Yes, progressive action multi spindle automates. You see that this type of machine, the workpieces are machined in stage by stage. The every stage the workpiece will be passing through that. The headstock has a spindle carrier. The workpieces are held by the collet in the spindles. So this is every tool is having the individual process. So the job moving one by one, automatically job will be getting in the final stage. So from 1 to 6, job will be getting finished. So this is a loading position. Finally, it will be unloading. So progressive type, you can see the difference. Normally, the same in a parallel action, the same process is only done. The progressive action, different operations are done. You can see that in the parallel actions, the one cycle, the number of components produced simultaneously is equal to the number of spindle only. But the progressive, the number of components produced in one cycle is not equal to the number of spindles. So based on the process requirement, for example, when you go for the tanning, phasing, chamfering, threading, boring, and final finishing, these are the operating process. It's not a mandatory to put every time we have to pass the material to 6 stages. It's based on the requirement. Sometimes maybe in a 3 position, sometimes it may be in the 5 position. But it's based on the requirement. The rate of production is very high in the parallel action, but the progress is somewhat moderate. The small parts of the sample shapes are produced only. The complicated parts can be produced by the progressive actions. If anything goes wrong in one station in the production, that particular station only affected in parallel action machine tools, but completely all the station will be affected in progressive action multiple attached. That is one of the drawback, but most of the industry they are preparing progressive actions is highly effective. And then tool layouts. That's I think last topic. The selection of tools, designing of special tools, selection of speed, selection of feed, setting required length of the workpiece and the tool travel length. Before going to starting the production, we have to follow some of the work. For example, these plannings, operation sequence and preparation of the turret or capstan lathe is termed as tool layout. So for example, we are going to machine the bolt. For that, what are all the things we have to design? For that, what are all the basic requirements for to machining? So we have to first plan all those things, select the proper machine, select the proper material, collect all those tools and equipments, draw the tool layout, calculate the proper speeds and feed for each operations, determine the sequence of various operations, prepare the tooling schedule chart. These are all the important factors you have to consider to prepare of that. So for example, I'm going to do the tool layout for the external bolt. See this is the tooling schedule chart. So the industry where they're mentioning normally they are mentioning some of the name for all the machines. The machine 75 mm capstan lathe, material is external mild steel. See that, and then tool position 1, 2, 3, 4. So every tool position has a different tool for the individual operations. For the tool position 1, bar stop is there. Turret position 2, the roller, steady box and turret tanning tool is there. Turret position 3, the roller, steady bar and ending tool. What is the role of that? To form the end of the bolt. And the turret position 4, the self-opening die head with the chaser or 20 mm. The cutting thread of 20 mm is the role of the tool. And then front cross-raise tool post chamfering operation, rear tool post for parting of the workpiece. These are all the work layer. So tooling schedule chart. So for every operation, we have to do the tooling schedule chart. In the industry, they are following in a very common position. I think this is last. So thank you for one and all. Thank you for giving a very good opportunity for me. So any number of slides I have uploaded in the SlideShare website. So if you want a detailed presentation about this topic, you can refer my presentations in SlideShare websites. And if you have any queries and any feedback, you can directly send the to my mail and my phone number. This is for your reference. I think this is my end.
Sir, thanks for your presentation, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Yes, sir. Sir, thanks for presentation. Sir, I respect the participants. Anyone, can you please unmute yourself and give some feedback about this webinar so we can able to improve our other presentation in forthcoming days. Can you, anyone, give feedback, oral feedback? You can unmute yourself and you can tell your name, college, and you can give your feedback.
Because already time exceeded.
Sir, now still. Sir, anyone, can you unmute and give your feedback, sir?
Sir, hello? My name is Ambrose, sir.
Yes,
hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, I'm from SIPET, Chennai.
Yes, sir.
thank you so much for your cooperation and for this lecture, sir. I actually I have enjoyed this seminar, and it was wonderful, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Please conduct more classes and lectures like this, sir. I'll be appear there, and I will love it, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure,
Thank you.
surely. We will conduct coming soon or next session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
So,
Sir,
anyone?
anybody?
Sir, will you provide
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam,
you-
Hello, sir.
Hello. Yes, yes,
Hello.
sir. Please
Sir,
introduce
I am
yourself.
from Koilgudi, sir.
Yes, yes, sir. Please proceed.
Sir, this class is more interesting, sir.
Okay, okay.
Sir, we can continue next day also, sir.
Yes, yes, sir. Because we are going to organize this kind of webinars for the next 2-3 topics on the secondary manufacturing process.
because still we need to carry out.
You can mail for all, sir.
Okay, good.
Yeah, definitely.
Sir, I am from oh,
Hello.
sir.
Yes, mister. Hello. So, the voice is not audible. Hello. Okay, okay, Maharajan. So try to complete.
Okay, sir. Thanks for your patience, sir. Sir, last instruction, I will send the feedback.
Yes, yes, please proceed, Maharajan.
I will send the feedback link to our WhatsApp group. So you can click the feedback link and you can submit the form. There will be a quiz is there. There is no grading, but still.
assessment for this session, sir?
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, madam.
Yes, madam. Tell me.
Yes, madam. You can say.
Is there any assessment for this session, sir? Like 10% MCQs and all.
You are from? Hello. Yes, madam. You are from?
I'm from Tirupati, sir.
Sure. Good, madam. Say.
Sir, is there any assessment for this session, sir? Like 10 MCQs and all?
Yes, madam. At the end of the session, we will send one quiz to you. You have
Okay,
to
sir.
answer all the tests. It's not a graded one. It's for just a adjustment of the session. Everyone have the e-certificate for the participant.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. We will release another webinar for next 2 weeks.
You will send that registration form to the mail itself, sir?
Sure. We will send it.
Yes.
No problem.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for your patience. Okay.
Sir, I am all lecturers from the
Yes.
IFET College of Engineering, sir.
Yes, sir. Please.
Sir, you may please send your PPT of 2 sections.
Yes, sir. All the
In the
things I
WhatsApp.
will send through the WhatsApp and mail to you. If you want the elaborated
Yes, sir.
details about the topic, already I have uploaded many PPTs to the FlightShare websites. You just mention my name. My name is Lakshmanan from Ramco Institute of Technology. You mention under SlideShare search column, automatically you can get many number of slides related to the manufacturing technology, secondary and primary operations.
Okay, sir. For future
Okay.
reference, need your PPT to read, sir.
Definitely. We will send it to you. No problem.
Yeah, we will send to
Okay,
your
sir.
WhatsApp
Thank you
group.
for your wonderful lecture, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you for all the patience of all the participants. We will see you on the next webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, participants, you go and fill the form. The quiz will be there. There are 10 questions. Don't worry about any grading and all, but you
Maharajan, you wind up on this.
Yes. Okay, sir.
Okay, yes. Please leave this.
Yes. Still some
Faculties are telling their
still
feedback.
some participants are there. So I think they are going to attend this thing, and they will come back, and we can have some confirmation on whether they will get the certificate or not. That we can.
I clearly told everyone have the e-certificate.
E-certificate.
So
Yes.
we will send a feedback and quiz for you. So you attend that quiz and give the feedback about the session. So automatically you will get the e-certificate. Okay.
Okay.
All the PPTs resource material will be sent by through the mail or WhatsApp group.
WhatsApp.
Okay. So if you have any queries, doubts related to this webinar, you can contact through the WhatsApp group. Okay. Thank you all the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.